everybody. Welcome to Hoopercast.
What's up?
Kellen's here.
Welcome.
But he's not all the way here yet. He's testing his equipment. So while he does that, I've got a quick story for you.
Okay.
It's because neither of you guys have multiple kids. So this won't be a thing yet. My kids have started nicknaming each other.
Okay.
I can't remember if I told you this or not. Tell me if I told you this story before, but my daughter came up to me one day and was like, Daddy, I can hear the little boys in their room, and they gave each other nicknames. I was like, oh, cool. Like what are they? And she said poop and pee. So one of them calls the other one poop, and the other one calls, she just heard, hey, poop. Yeah. Yappy.
It's a bad shock jock radio.
Yeah.
With poop and pee in the morning.
Start your day off with a poop and a pee.
Hey, poop, did you see what Trump did last night? I did pee.
Sorry, I was too busy. I was too busy in the toilet. Flush noise. Okay. That's the best I got this week. Hey, this is Juror number 2.
Number 2?
Speaking of poopy.
Hey.
All right. This is the Juror number 2 episode.
I swear we're more mature than this usually.
We're so brilliant that subconsciously we have to do the show. So yeah, this is the Juror number 2 episode. So we talked about this a while back, and it kind of started out as just a straight review of Juror number 2, and it quickly became another rant about streaming from us. But it's a good one. So you should listen.
Old men yell at the cloud.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
that should be the title. I still have time to change that title. I should. All right. Okay. Anyway, enjoy Juror number 2. Let's discuss Juror number 2 because I have to be honest, I forgot about this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually is a good segue into one of the things I want to talk about, but I'll start with the film itself.
It was last October. It was raining, and I hit something. I got out of the car and I looked around. When I checked, I didn't see anything, and I figured it was a deer that ran off.
Okay, what's the problem?
I got called for jury duty. The Kendall Carter case?
1 year ago, on October 25th, the defendant, James Scythe, and his then girlfriend, Kendall Carter, they had a fight. And he's gonna pay for what he did.
What are you telling me?
Maybe I didn't hit a deer.
Let me just ask you one thing. Did you guys ever look at any other suspect? You know what to do.
The film itself was released just last year, 2024, at the end of the year. And of course, it's directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Nicholas Hoult and Toni Collette and J.K. Simmons and Kiefer Sutherland and Zoe Deutsch and a bunch of other faces. And yeah, man, so there's a lot to like here. The cast is great. Clint Eastwood's great. And yeah, it's an interesting story. So I'm trying to figure out how much of the story to actually tell. I haven't watched a trailer for this, so I don't know how much they reveal in the trailer, but I think it's probably clear enough to say this. Nicholas Hoult is a that's a good Western name.
Nicholas Colt.
My name's Nicholas Colt. This town ain't big enough.
Who was wasn't it Samuel Colt who actually made the gun?
Oh, I have no idea what his name was.
Like, I believe it was Samuel.
That's an interesting piece of trivia.
Let's find out on the history show.
Hoopercast Movie Hour.
Inventor.
With gun facts.
Inventor, industrialist, and businessman who established Colt's patent firearms manufacturing company and made the mass production of revolvers commercially viable.
How about that? Well, there you go.
Samuel Colt.
Samuel Colt. You'd expect nothing less from a guy named Samuel Colt.
Pretty cool.
So Nicholas Hoult plays a young father-to-be. His wife is played by Zoe Deutsch, and they are living in Chatham County in Savannah, Georgia, and he's called to be a juror. And while serving on the jury, he realizes that he may have an actual connection to this case, and it's a big moral conundrum for him whether to utilize that special knowledge that he may have of the case in convicting or not convicting this supposed murderer. And so I think that's a pretty good synopsis. Obviously, there's twists and turns and all that stuff, and maybe the trailer gives away a little more than I did, but regardless, I think it's probably better if you go in more blind. It's always better when you go in more blind for a movie like this. It's an interesting story because it feels very small. Clint Eastwood obviously has made big movies, but he's also made very small, kind of intimate type films.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is a really good example of him directing a small sort of character-driven thing. And the whole thing is a character-driven moral dilemma, and that's inherently interesting. Now, I eventually ended up giving the film 3.5 stars. I think it's a really good movie. I think there's a few things that keep it from being great. Chief among them is I think that the film kind of lacks a forward momentum to keep you on the edge of your seat. So while you're never bored or disengaged, you're also never eagerly awaiting the next scene. And I think that that's a weird thing for what is essentially a thriller. I mean, it's a legal thriller, but it's a thriller nonetheless. And it's a crime whodunit in a way. Mm-hmm. And you'd expect to be a little more invested in the actual murder or the actual moral dilemma either way. And I think that while, again, I wasn't disinterested, I also wasn't overly interested, if that makes sense. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think Clint Eastwood, he's 94 or was 93, 94 when he shot this film, and probably works a little slower just because of that. And I think that the film probably would have benefited from some energy that a young Eastwood could have brought to this, or even, just a different director altogether. And I think that, again, it's just a little bit, it's not boring. It's just a little lacking in energy. Like every performance feels a little bit slow, a little bit dry. And it's, again, I'm not going to chalk that up to Nicholas Hoult or Toni Collette. Like, obviously these actors and actresses are phenomenal. And truth be told, I don't think it's something that Clint Eastwood maybe even did on purpose. I think it's just a byproduct of his age, a byproduct of the types of films that he makes, coupled with the age. And so I think the film probably would have been a little better had it been directed by a younger Clint Eastwood. That said, it is a totally serviceable film, and it's on HBO Max. So if you have Max and you feel like, hey, I'd like to watch a movie tonight, this is not a bad choice. The film is almost 2 hours long. It probably could have been an hour and a half. I think you probably could have cut out 20 minutes of this, and it would have been okay. But I think all in all, it's a good movie and certainly worth your time if you want to invest your time in it. to me, what I wanted to bring up was the odd release of this film, which is, you had mentioned, like, I forgot all about this movie.
Yeah.
And so did everyone else in the world, apparently. Yeah. And it's a very strange thing because for a director his age and of his stature, you would expect this to probably be his last film.
Yeah.
And so you'd expect it to be met with some fanfare. And even if it's, it was never said like this is his last film, you kind of have to think like any one of his movies could now be his last film. So let's treat them all with some fanfare.
Yeah.
But the film was made for $35 million. It's a very modest budget. Obviously Clint can get big budgets, but this doesn't warrant it, which is great to see a director not, just throw in every bell and whistle. But it only made $24 million at the box office. So this did not break even.
Jeez.
And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, according to my research, the film was released in fewer than 50 domestic theaters.
Really?
Which means you probably didn't have this movie playing anywhere near you.
Yeah.
Or if you did, it was maybe one theater somewhere in a big city. So it was
for comparison, like wide release is like 3,000 theaters.
Yeah. So this is a very, very limited release. And it was originally, I think, envisioned to be a direct to streaming release for Max. So maybe Warner Brothers was like, well, okay, maybe their idea of fanfare is we'll put it in 50 theaters. But it kind of had a weird effect where I think had it dropped on Max just initially with a big marketing push behind it, you would have had a lot more people tune in. And, especially had they marketed it like the latest and possibly last film from Clint Eastwood, I think you definitely could have gotten an audience on board. But because they released it in 50 theaters first, it's almost like by the time it got to Max, who cares? You kind of either saw it already or you didn't, and you kind of heard about it, but not enough to go see it because none of your friends saw it. And so why would you then see it? And so it's like one of those weird things where if access had been to everybody all at once, I think it would have benefited it instead of this weird, like segmented rollout, which I think ultimately hurt it. And so you think like, again, for what could potentially be Clint Eastwood's last film, I would expect a big marketing push. I would expect him to go on some of the talk shows, even at 95, whatever.
Yeah.
Do something like he calls in to Jimmy Fallon, whatever.
Yeah.
But like you'd expect something. And of course, this is all going to help, put butts in seats. And I just don't think I don't think it was wise, and I don't understand the marketing it got because it is a good movie and totally solid. But Hollywood also doesn't make movies like this anymore. A $35 million movie that stars pretty well-known people, but none of them, it's not Brad Pitt, you know what I mean? But it's like,
Stallone.
it's not Stallone, whatever, but like they're well known and they have people who would go see them like, sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a strange thing, but I enjoyed the movie and I think it was just released the wrong way and it could have had some buzz around it and it just didn't.
This is what Wikipedia says. So other than the direct to stream, it was initially envisioned as direct to streaming. It did play in 50 domestic theaters. When it did get a wide release in the UK, it was in 300 theaters in the UK.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
6 times the amount of theaters, not
in the UK.
In the UK. And it's like, so they could give it 300, that's just crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It says Variety characterized Warner Brothers' decision to deny the film a wide release as a, quote, peculiar approach for a filmmaker who still has commercial appeal, noting that Eastwood has been making films for Warner Brothers for 50 years and was still delivering major commercial successes, including American Sniper, Sully, and The Mule.
Yep.
Bilge,
which I never saw the mule, but okay.
I didn't see Sully or the mule. Bilge Abiri from Vulture suggested that Warner Brothers' decision implied deep problems with the modern day studio system, suggesting that Eastwood, for all his genre cred and iconic stature, is one of the few major filmmakers left making studio-financed adult dramas. To the modern studio executive, he must look like a glitch in the Matrix, not an artist to be protected, but an error to be corrected.
Oof.
The film's atypical release entailed Warner Brothers announcing that the film would debut on Max on December 20th, 2024, branded as a Max original. A spokesperson for the studio claimed that a direct-to-streaming release was the original intent and that they agreed with the filmmakers to consider a limited theatrical run in order to generate word of mouth ahead of the Max release. Yeah, that's like systemic, like let's use traditional theaters to build buzz for a Max release. Which is just so backward.
But it doesn't work that way. Like, it can't work that way. The idea of generating word of mouth is you need a lot of people to see it.
Yeah.
If you don't know, like, so presumably if it opened in 50 theaters or less, we're talking maybe one per state, but not even really.
Yeah.
So you might know a group of, I don't know, I'm going to wager between 50 and 150 people in your entire state who saw that film.
Yeah.
The chances of you knowing one of those 150 people, very slim.
Yeah.
So what word of mouth?
Yeah. No, that doesn't hold water for me. I'm really sick of this addiction-like fixation on growing subscribers. Like, this will help us grow subscribers. It's like movies are products, but they're money-making products in and of themselves. They're not loss leaders for your subscription numbers for this financial quarter.
I think that's what they want them to be.
I know.
I think that's what they're talking about, a glitch in the Matrix. Like, this film, it can't be that. It's not designed to draw in an audience like that for that reason. This is like the movie that, you know, your parents and your grandparents go to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're not then going to turn around and subscribe to Max just because it's there.
Yeah.
This is like just one of those movies that the whole family goes to see after Thanksgiving dinner because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or I don't know, like in the 90s, there just were movies like this all the time.
I'm thinking
where people just went to go see a movie.
You just went to go see, like, you go on a date, right? Like, you go to see a movie, like, oh, cool. Like, we got a babysitter. Like, now I can, let's go watch something. Please God, let's hopefully there's something in theaters for adults right now.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
And it's luckily it's Juror number 2. Oh, awesome. A movie for grownups, you know?
Yes.
And that's what it is. That's the programming model is there's got to be something in theaters at all times for grownups to see.
Correct.
You know?
Well, it's like, you know, if you remember in like all these episodes of Seinfeld where they're just like, let's just go to the movies. You know what I mean? And it's like they weren't going because it's the next big Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just a movie.
Something to do.
It's something to do.
Yeah.
It's a night out. It's whatever. And I'm like, man, I miss those days where you would just go see something.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what it's based on or what the source material is, or have you seen all 27 movies that precede this?
I don't think I don't think I've ever experienced this, but I was old enough to experience this, but there was a time where you would just go to a movie theater and then you would decide what you were going to watch when you got there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
It's like, okay, cool. What's playing? What time is it now? Okay. Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I say I didn't do that because I checked the papers and like called the theater.
I
like
too.
I planned ahead like a smart person. But,
right.
But they're
not like a psychopath.
But especially like for those movie theaters that used to be part of malls, like you're at the mall.
Yeah.
All right. What time's the thing? All right. That's like an hour from now. All right. Well, let's go shop and go to the food court, and then we'll come back here in an hour and watch Juror number 2.
And that's why I'm convinced like time moved differently then. Mm-hmm. Like it just had to, because you were like, sure, I'll go spend 2 hours to see that movie. And now everyone's like, oh, 2 hours. I don't know.
That's
man.
A lot of time.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I don't know. In the 90s, you just did that. But no, I totally remember looking in the papers and seeing like the show times and whatever. But I remember the equivalent of going to the theater without knowing what you're going to see was sitting with the paper and saying, okay, what's playing? And like you would see all the show times and you could go back over to the next column or whatever where the reviews would be. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, he says that one's pretty good. Let's go check that one out.
Yeah.
Or, oh, this one has Robin Williams. We'll go see that one. Don't know what it is. Like, that's how we saw Bicentennial Man. I saw that in theaters because it was just, I don't know, it's a new Robin Williams movie. Yeah. And so we did.
I always knew what I was going to watch because I was exposed to enough marketing through commercials. So I usually knew what was coming. And so I just checked the papers like every weekend and it'd be like, oh, that's right. That thing is out now. And I would plan my whole day around when a movie was playing or when something was going to be on TV.
Yep.
And now they just want to put them on streaming. And
right. Yes, exactly.
And you know, we've discussed this ad nauseum, the horrible reality that there are so many movies that pass the test of being acceptable viewing experiences to where there's way more films than anyone can possibly watch. I can't tell you how many times I've like talked to new people lately and like their favorite thing, like their favorite TV show or favorite like recent movie is not one of mine. And it is not the same as the previous person I talked to.
Sure.
Like, good Lord. Like we're all so siloed, like even with our entertainment, like, you know, like someone's favorite show could be New Girl. And it's like, I see why that is because that's a popular show. I just haven't happened to have watched it. I watch a lot of TV, not even one of the shows I've seen, you know, like,
right. Yeah.
Anyway, so it's so you can't possibly capture that entire audience with a Clint Eastwood movie for Max. It's like, just put the thing in theaters, let it make money, like let it be what it is instead of like retooling it to this newfangled, like, part of your catalog. Like you're not, I know Netflix did just have like their biggest their biggest quarter ever, like their biggest subscriber growth, I think in their history or something.
Wow.
Which is
what could possibly be causing that?
It's the
Squid Game.
It's the password crackdowns, really.
Good Lord.
It's artificial. And they also said, oh, and we're not going to announce subscriber growth moving forward. That was the last time. It's like, yeah, I bet you're not, motherfucker.
Yeah, right.
it's never going to be this good again. Yeah. It's like they knew it would be good. And so like, let's tell them this is it. And so you can't fool me. I know what you're doing. And it's pathetic. Stop it.
Yes. Right. It's so strange, man. Like we had this, I guess this is just evolution, right? But like you had the theatrical model and it is what it is. Yeah. Then suddenly streaming pops up and like everyone wants to do halvesy. Like, well, I'm going to do both, a little bit of both. And it's just like, I think this just proves you can't do both. You have to pick one. It's either theaters and streaming eventually or streaming only.
How hard is that? Like, how hard is it to just be like, isn't it good enough to be like, hey, this is a Warner Brothers film. So obviously it's going to end up on Max. So they'll come to see it because there are people who will go to movies and who will wait for them on streaming, and they're not necessarily the same people. And it's like, you're splitting the audience by offering it at the same time. If you offer it exclusively in theaters behind a paywall, then people will go, well, then I make choices and those choices can inform the movies that are made. And then the studio system can like exist and be healthy again. And then it's like, all right, now it's the streaming. Okay, well, it happens to be on this one because we own it. And it's like, okay, cool. I'll sign up for Max, or, oh, I have Max. That's great. And it's just, why did the streaming services have to be this big money-making behemoth? That just isn't what they are. If anything, they just reinforce a studio's prestige, but they should be like profit neutral endeavors, you know, that just like exist as a non-profit. Like every dollar they make should just, I mean, it does go to Warner Brothers and Discovery, but like it should just go to the studio. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't be like, why isn't this making money? Like it's not a product. It's a platform. Just Stop thinking of it as something that needs to make you fucking rich, you know?
Correct. Well,
because that's all it is. It's just a platform where you watch things.
I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, I think all these like new release movies, like every new release movie should go to a streaming service and then you have to like pay for it for X amount of time. Like, I guess the idea was, you remember like when Disney released Mulan or Black Widow or whatever, and it's like you're a subscriber, then you also pay an additional fee for this film. And I guess this person that I work with was like, this is what I want. And I'm like, yeah, but see, like, I don't rent movies as is, even when they're like $5, because I'm like, I don't care enough. Like, eventually it'll be on streaming, and the experience will be exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I'll just wait for it in most cases. But like the idea of saying, okay, you pay X amount of dollars per month for Max, now pay an additional 20 or 10 or whatever for Juror number 2 on the day, and you have, it's behind a paywall for a year, and then we'll, whatever. And it's like, okay, I see the merit in that from a studio's perspective to say, well, then it's behind a paywall for a year. They have to pay an additional fee. For me, I'm like, I would never pay an additional fee for this film. And that's a problem for me because like, I like the movie, but my brain is still in that mode of like, but $20 or even $10 is kind of most of the way to just owning the movie. I might as well just own the movie if I'm going to watch it at home regardless. Yeah. You can still trick me into spending 20, 40, $50 by the time you get concessions by going to the theater, because that's an inherently different experience than watching it at home. And so I'm okay dropping $20 for 2 tickets to Juror number 2 at the theater. But if you say, well, drop $20 at home, I'm like, no, I don't see the purpose in that. So like, I'm part of the problem, but I'm also like, this is why to me, it's people like me that the studio system can't be done with the theatrical model yet. I guess there are people who aren't like me who would just drop the 20 to watch it at home. But I'm like, if I'm going to watch it at home and spend $20, I want to own it.
So,
and I don't know. It's a weird thing.
I definitely agree with all that. I think there's on the opposite angle. I think there is something to be said for convincing. If I'm in the boardroom and I'm convincing Warner Brothers, or all of them, I've got all the studio, I've got all the people in my office, and I'm like, okay, why don't we just do a 30-day, like it's on your platform thing? If you have a platform, Disney, Peacock, Paramount, Warner Brothers, you guys are in luck. Who doesn't have a platform, I guess? Yeah. Don't they all have, all the big ones do, really?
Sony.
Sorry, Sony.
Sorry, Sony.
Sorry. But you're not wasting all of this, overhead paying people to make a profitable streaming Sony Plus,
Sony Plus,
you know what I mean?
No one would subscribe.
And honestly, like that's one of the only things I still respect about Sony right now is that they aren't trying to do this. So all that
Pascal Plus.
Subscribe to the sandwich throwing tier. I would tell them, hey, 30 days, you get to put it on your platform and you can charge, day and date, right? And just like Disney did, your subscribers are subscribed, that they pay that to get access to all the stuff that's already there. If they want the day and date movie, they do have to pay. And I don't know, come up with a price. I think $30 is fine because I would think of it as a convenience fee. And the assumption is there's probably at least one person watching with you, right? So
sure, like
let's just do a flat fee, $30. And I think, and then you need to calculate and report those numbers so we don't end up with another Scarlett Johansson situation. Like you got to calculate all that. But I would say the reason that can work is because there are people. I don't think you're necessarily going to take people out of the theaters, because I think that if you're going to the theater, you care about that experience. And if you don't care about the theater experience, you weren't going to the theater anyways. You were always going to wait for it to come to streaming.
Yeah.
But that person might not wait for regular streaming if they can watch it right now on streaming. So you might be able to capture that audience who's willing to be like, all right, because if you think of it that way for a studio, they're making possibly, if that model checks out, like let's just pretend it's additive, right? No one leaves the theaters. Everyone still goes to the theaters, and then more people watch it at home at the same time. So you're making more money on the movie. You're getting bigger box office gross by giving it another distribution platform from which you can make money. I would say the only, and the upside of that being that there are people who may have a hard time going to the theater. It might just be a hassle, people who can't drive, just stuff like that. You got people who are like, oh, cool. Now I can watch it at home day and date, and I will gladly pay the $30 for that convenience because I don't want to miss out, but I don't want to drive to the theater, or I'm an agoraphobe or whatever. I don't know. Like
sure.
all the reasons.
Yeah.
And I think that would be completely fine. And that at least offers streaming services a profit opportunity, offering something that is worth charging that profit. It's a new release. And then the person who's going to do that doesn't really care where they see it in the first place. Yeah. So it's sort of like, whatever, we may as well get that person's money. Yeah. And, people like me are probably still going to go to a theater to watch a new movie because one, I'm going by myself. So I'd rather pay just the one ticket. Like, and I want to see it in a theater with people. But it's different if it's like Sonic 3 and that's like, well, I'll watch that at home because that's easier than finding childcare for my younger kids and
loading
my kids and doing all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I'll just pay for it at home and we'll watch it in my living room. Yeah. So, and that's just a different kind of experience. So I don't know. I that's what I see as a way forward, but it's also just, they would still find a way to fuck it up.
You know what I would love, and this would never happen because it doesn't make any sense, but would be great, is like, okay, you spend your $20-$30 for the at-home fee, great, and then you get like in your inbox the next day a voucher to redeem like, I don't know, 50% off the Blu-ray or whatever. So you're like, okay, cool. So the studio's kind of guaranteed a little more money.
Yeah.
And I don't have to spend as much money to own it because I already spent a heck ton to have it at my home already.
True.
That'd be more of an incentive. They'd never do it because it makes too much sense for the consumer. But like, but yeah, I would love some sort of incentive to participate in that. And maybe the incentive is, hey, this is what we're doing now. If you want to watch this thing, this is how you're going to watch it.
Because it costs them nothing to just put it on there.
Sure.
And it's instant distribution. And then you could potentially have every family in America watching your movie on the same exact night.
Correct.
And more people than than all the theaters could possibly fit in a weekend just because of seating capacity. Like that's one barrier that's now gone is physical seating capacity.
Yeah.
You're not driving, you're not spending gas. So maybe you want to get a little wasted, and you don't have to worry about killing somebody. You know what I mean? Like you just, I don't know. It's just,
I'll tell you the downside of this. So, and this probably means nothing to most people. Maybe some of our listeners will enjoy this, but I think the general public wouldn't care, is it feels to me like what we're talking about is the dissolving exhibition of art. So we have to think about like the way that art is presented is also sort of an art, and the way that art is presented matters. Right.
Yeah.
You could see a really fantastic piece of art, whatever it is, a sculpture, a painting, interpretive dance, whatever. You can see an awesome piece of art in the wrong context and it doesn't mean as much, but you see it in the right context and it suddenly means more. It's more important. And that's, I think, universally true across the arts, that how you present your art matters. And so for someone like Chris Nolan, I know like his response to all of this would be, yes, but convenience is convenience, but we're sacrificing the way that our art is presented. And the artist now no longer has control over how that art is presented to the world. Now, granted, film is an interesting medium because it's equal parts art and commerce. Yeah. Or maybe it's more commerce these days than art. But the point is, there is some level of expectation that it is art and that it is commerce. And if you remove all of the pomp of the presentation of the art, then all that's left is the commerce, and then films become disposable. And in the same way you would use a Twinkie, it is now gone. You've used it, and it meant nothing to you. It's empty calories. And so you think about, like, I know that would be some people's retort to this is, as a filmmaker, I now no longer have control over how you see my film. Whereas if I mix it in Atmos and in 7.1 and I send it out to the theaters, I can guarantee you you're seeing the fruit of all of that work that I did. Yeah. If you play it at home on your terrible Samsung speakers that are facing the wrong direction in your home and it pointed at the back wall and you're just getting the reverberations of the sound off your walls. Yeah. And your aspect ratio is stretched to fit or whatever, and you've got motion smoothing on, then the way that I presented my art to you is now broken. Yeah. It's akin to saying, here's the Mona Lisa, but you can only look at it through this cheese grater. It doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the question.
Maybe certain filmmakers like Chris Nolan, like, Denis Villeneuve, like, have the clout to put it in their contracts. Like, hey, my shit doesn't go on streaming, even for pay, even for profit. Yeah, because I care about how it's presented. And if you want me to do this film, I'm going to insist that it's not, and that they put it in writing and that's it. And I guess the only downside to that is then, other auteur directors, maybe with less clout, like Robert Eggers, might try to say the same thing. And the studio will go, who are you? Like, no, of course not. Right. But then a guy like him might go, okay, I'll just go do a movie for some other studio. I don't give a shit. Like, yeah, right. So would it weed out people who, and then most movies, like, Jeff Fowler, or what's his name for Sonic. Yeah. He's not going to care. He's not going to ask them for theatrical only. And that's not even a film that, I don't want to say it's not a film.
Sonic 3 is the Mona Lisa.
Right. It's like Sonic 3. Like, I don't think we were expecting a lot from the Dolby mix of Sonic 3, although I'm sure it's wonderful and superior. Superior in a theater. But like that director and that studio are not going to go, hey, excuse me.
The aspect ratio that Jim Carrey is gyrating in is incorrect.
Precisely. So I don't know. But then that puts too much. It's like, it shouldn't be, in one way, it shouldn't be on the director to have to do that. But at the same time, like, let's work backwards. The studio does not care how it makes its money. And at this point, the studio has no respect for the art, for art's sake. Even MGM, arts gratis, arts for art's sake. Even that studio is owned by fucking Amazon now. Amazon doesn't care about art for art's sake. It's almost a silly misnomer. I can see Jeff Bezos on that logo trying to paint over those words.
I'm just imagining him as the lion.
I'm imagining the lion's trying to stop him, and he's holding like a chair, like like in the circus.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's like, oh no. So they don't care about arts for art's sake. So the studio is never going to argue for like the proper presentation. So then who will? And it's like,
sure,
the director probably, like that's where it sort of stops. Yeah. And then it comes down to that, like, okay, well, only the directors with the commercial clout to make a demand like that could actually make it, stick.
But then we go further down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
If the only people demanding it go to the theaters are Christopher Nolan, and he makes one film every 3 years, movie theaters are out of business. So the option's now gone.
Oh, I mean, he would insist on only theaters for the movie, just not on streaming, like not also on streaming.
Right. But I'm saying the theaters will cease to exist.
But other movies would still go to theaters.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Did we murder all the other filmmakers?
Yeah, they're all dead.
that was Warner Brothers counteroffer. All right, Chris, yes, but first
you can do it, but only if you kill everyone else.
A genocide.
And you have to do it in your suit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm dismayed by it. The more it's weird. They say like there's that old saying that it's probably not true, but it's that old saying, like, when if you're under 30 and you aren't a liberal, you have no heart, and if you're over 30 and you aren't a conservative, you have no brain or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I'm over 30, and the older I get, the more I just want everything to be like state sponsored and not for profit. Like the more of a communist I'm becoming, because like I hate like, to me, the studio system in America is like one of like the most bloated examples of just disgusting gobbled up capitalism that there is.
It's a shame that like movies and music bring people so much joy.
Yep.
And there's so much commercial interest around those things that they inevitably become products, and then they mean nothing.
Yeah.
And so like maybe they still bring you joy, but it's almost in spite of how they're produced, and in spite of the treatment of the artist, and in spite of everything. And you just have to be like, okay, fine, I still like it. It's a jam, but like I hate everything about it. And that's just how it is. But it sucks. We're in an age where self-publishing is more possible than ever.
Yeah.
And like all it would take is you making a movie, and you can distribute that thing on your own. Yeah. You can distribute that music on your own. You don't need anything. Yeah. And I think the studios kind of know that. They're trying to fight against it.
Yes.
And at the same time, they themselves are trying to utilize it. And it's a problem all around. Like you can't take Juror number 2 and give it the same treatment that, theoretically an indie film made by a no-name director could also have that same treatment. But like they're apples and oranges. They can't compare. One's Clint Eastwood, 3 years old when it went into production. Clint Eastwood, like the dude's a legend, and he deserves something beyond what the indie filmmaker can get. And I don't know. It's just a weird thing where the studios are pouring billions of dollars. Like Disney's the prime example of this. I saw something recently that was like Star Wars: The Acolyte costs like $700,000 per minute.
What? Wow.
It was some crazy figure. That's probably wrong, but it was a crazy figure. Like the amount of money spent on the thing divided by the total number of minutes released.
Yeah.
It resulted in some crazy amount, of money per minute.
Wow.
And I'm like, see, this is the problem. Like you're taking what should have been first of all, you should never spend that amount of money on a film on
anything,
whatever, on anything. But like,
let's put aside the argument real quick that like, obviously like this money would all be much better spent like feeding the hungry and like, you know,
doing things that matter in the world. Yeah.
Actually improving the lives of like disenfranchised or impoverished people.
That is correct.
Yeah. That's another thing that's gross about it. It's like, like, oh, these movies, like what's the budget for the Avengers? Like 500 million. You're like, wow, it's just,
that's a lot of money.
It's so much money. And it's like, we made a film with it. Huh?
Yes. But what's even worse is you're like, and how much money did it make? 2 times that.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh,
$3 billion. And
whatever it was. And it's like, oh.
And then how much money? I'm not complaining Robert Downey Jr. But how much money did Robert Downey Jr. get? $80 million. And you're like, one person?
Why does he need that much money?
Yeah.
Jeez, this is his 5th film where he's made that much money.
It's so gross. I love RDJ, but like when you look at the numbers, it's hard not to be like, oh my God, that's a lot of cheap food that could be easily handed out to the homeless. That's a lot of hot dogs.
Yeah. It's a lot of craft singles. It's ridiculous. I'm looking at it going like, if somebody was willing to pay me 80 million, wouldn't I be dumb to say no? But at the same time, what do I need it for? I don't have any reason to get that much money, especially if I've already got however many millions hundreds of millions in the bank.
Yeah.
What's an extra 80 million going to do for me and my family?
I feel like too that there's a part of it that's like, listen, like anything else, like, well, if it's not me, they'll pay some other person a similar amount of money. This system exists already and I can either profit from it or choose not to take part of it. But then if I don't take part in it, I can't change it. And so, but while I'm taking part in it and trying to change it, I look like an asshole who's only profiting from it, even if I am trying to change it. And it's like, you can't win.
You can't win.
The worst, like the bad thing already happened where it exists and it's normal and it has all this momentum and all these people that depend on it. And it's just, and this is why people unjustly, but this is why like assholes cheer when those people's houses burn down in horrible fires, because it's like, because to them it's like a devil factory that's just bathed in money. It's like I get that
they've
part
got
of your
the money to rebuild,
right? I get that part of the argument. Like again, most of the people who lost their homes are working class or below. People think that Hollywood is only populated by movie stars. There's no construction workers, no telemarketers, no teachers. Like it's
correct. There's nothing.
It's only rich actors.
No baristas.
Yeah. When in fact it's millions of working class people that make that system work, and a small percentage at the top who make most of the money. Correct. Where was I going with that? All to say, it's a gross industry.
Yeah.
Putting that aside.
So putting that aside, spending that amount of money on something is ridiculous. Yeah. But utilizing this streaming platform, which could be used to like embolden indie filmmakers without distribution, and instead you're using it to just churn out another gross product that's overhyped, too expensive, and honestly just mediocre at best as an art and as a story and as an expenditure of my time.
Knuckles.
Why would you do this?
Right.
Like, and this is the studios trying to have their cake and eat it too. We own the theater system. Now let's own the streaming system and take that opportunity away from up and comers and just pour billions of dollars into gross things for the consumers to ingest. Which
to me loses them more money than just competing with the up and comers. If you just competed with the up and comers, and there wouldn't be any loss leader to pour billions of dollars into. Like we know that shows like Knuckles cannot possibly be making them money. Like we know that they cost a certain amount of money and there is no cost. There's no profit to offset it. They're just giving it to us. It's like, okay, thank you. But again, after a while, like this is a waste of my time. And how is this good for you? You're not making money. So like, I feel gross watching it because like, not only am I not enjoying this, but I feel like I'm helping you make a problem so much worse by contributing to your delusion that this is meaningful somehow, when in reality, you're just creating a gigantic deficit in your budget that you will then use as a reason why other people cannot make something or why their idea won't work. Because you'll say, well, I mean, Knuckles lost money, so your dumb shit certainly would lose money because no one knows about it. It's like, well, Knuckles lost money because of your budget and the fact that it was released straight to streaming and it was ill-conceived, not this guy's awesome script that would cost, you know, $10 million to make,
$10 million,
you know, as opposed to Knuckles, probably 70 million at least to make.
I just looked, it's around about $90 million for the series.
All right. I was close. Okay.
You're close.
I'm disappointed that streaming has not been more of a home for indie filmmakers, because as you just said, it's like, it's the perfect way to use the platform. These people there's no other way to get them. And so this is better than putting it on Vimeo or YouTube. Now it's on Netflix and you know, like you could have a whole section. I mean, some of them do like independent film, and it's like just cycle them in there. And hey, if you don't want to like leave it on your platform forever, like maybe that shit's only there for like 3 months or something. Then it's like, then you don't have to co-finance it and get your brand involved and start asking for story changes because now it's a Netflix original. Just put it on there. You know, and that alone could get people subscribing because they know that there's a limited run of independent, interesting films on your platform. So
here's the play. You hire somebody, a curator, who will find these features that have some, you know, like common thread around your flavor. Yeah. And, you know, what is the Netflix flavor? And they go to all the film festivals, they scour YouTube, they're on, you know, whatever, college campuses, who knows, whatever. The point is they're out there scouting talent the way you would baseball players, and you're finding those talented films and filmmakers, and you're securing them for your platform. Yeah. Doing nothing but giving them a platform. Yeah. You're paying them for the rights. Yeah. But it's probably a nominal fee rather than like producing a new season of Orange is the New Black, you know, whatever. Yeah. Like it's going to be astronomical, but like you're paying a nominal fee, and those filmmakers have money in their pocket for their next film. They have a guaranteed distribution for their film and the backing of a curator that people trust. And that's the thing. It's almost like each streaming service, there shouldn't be as many, but here we are, that each streaming service has a curator who's specifically designing, like I'm designing a playlist, and every 6 months that playlist has turnover, whatever it is. But like it's an evolving, or rather a revolving door of talent that, that's coming and going all the time, curated by a single entity or a single, you know, brain trust. And like, that's the play. It's essentially A24. A24 has a flavor. Neon has a flavor. Yeah. Netflix needs a indie film flavor. And instead what they're doing is they're housing Chef for the 280th year in a row, and championing it as like this indie darling, which it is, but like, it's also old and you've seen it. So rotate it out. Yeah. Like you don't need it. And also it yes, it is, but it's also like a John Favreau thing. So like, whatever, it doesn't feel like a boon to somebody's career. But like, I don't know, man, that's totally the play. If I were at Netflix or if I were at Max, I'd be saying, okay, we're hiring 6 people and they're going to go out there, scout talent, bring them in. We're going to pay fees to these people for 6 months usage of their film. It gets on there, and then the rights all revert back to that person to then figure out, like, how am I going to either distribute this again on another platform, or, you know, maybe I'll release it on Blu-ray or whatever and say, hey, it's not on Netflix anymore, but if you loved it, you can buy it on Blu-ray on my website, whatever. Like, the rights revert back to the filmmaker, and the filmmaker can now do with it what they want, but they got a big check in their pocket.
Yeah.
And a huge buzz that they wouldn't have had otherwise, because all these people out here are going, well, I trust Jeff over at Netflix and his indie film channel. Let me see what's on today. And here's the newly added. Cool. Never saw that before. I liked it. Great. 6 months later, it's gone. I'll buy it on Blu-ray direct from the filmmaker. That's the play.
And that is what is so good about the indie, like, financial ecosystem too, is like you would then have like critics whose whole beat is the indie beat. Yeah. And they feed the streaming services because they are probably recommending people to go see something on Netflix. So, you know, like that's why the streaming services would like the coverage. And then it obviously benefits the filmmakers and the viewers, because now we're getting, people are watching the movie. Benefits the creators because they have, that's the thing, like distributing films from festivals is like the best thing ever, because the thing's already been made. Yeah. It's maintained its originalness and its specialness, but now there's a chance for people to see it, for the filmmaker to profit from it, just from the licensing fee alone. And then people see it, journalists cover it, more people hear about it. Maybe a bunch of people rush to Netflix to watch it while it's still there. Netflix goes, oh shit, like, look at all these new subscribers. That's pretty cool. And that all feeds into the story of this new filmmaker who now gets a shot to make something bigger. And that's how stuff starts to happen. Like, it's weird because this is all one big ad, it sounds like, for Mubi. You know about Mubi, right?
I have no idea what this is. This
is not a commercial for Mubi, but I'm about to pitch it exactly like it is. Mubi's a streaming service, and I believe the way it works, I'm not going to go to their site and read the copy, but like, I believe the way it works is Mubi has like 30 films on it at a single time. And every day something rotates out and something rotates in. And there are human curators who are deciding what goes on that service. And everything's there for 30 days. And so you could, in theory, if, you know, just subscribe to Mubi, and you could have something to watch every day of the month that would be not influenced by an algorithm, you know, and would be probably really original and interesting. Right. I've thought about it before. I don't have time, but I think about Mubi a lot because the more we have conversations like this, the more I'm like, that might be the only way to. I still haven't seen The Substance at the time we're recording this, but like that's one of those ones I want to check out, because that's like water cooler and original and, like, you know, all those things. Yeah, right. So all that to say, subscribe to Mubi, everybody. Wow. Okay. And I think that's a cool model. Yeah. And I think that, like, and there's stuff on Mubi that, like, I've seen on other streaming services. It's not like it's completely obscure stuff, like, you know, like The Host or something, like that's on there, or that was on there at one time. Like, so it seems worth checking out. I kind of want to try it, you know. That's cool. But I did fact check myself. It is $750,000 per minute. Oh my God. For the Acolyte? Yep. God. Wow. That's insane. And just think, like, okay, maybe like $10 million to an up and coming filmmaker for the 6 months usage of their film. Yeah. You can do that a lot of times. Yeah, you can do that a lot of times. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And again, 6 months, 3 months, like whatever you think is, you know, 3 months is, you know, tidier for the quarter, but you know what I mean? Like, just, I don't know. And just do that for X amount of films and put a time limit on all of them. I don't know. Just
right.
but that's how you do it, is like, hey, like, because we all know when we subscribe to streaming services, like there's stuff that's not going to be there the whole time, but there's too much there that's impossible to like make efficient use of that.
Mm-hmm.
But hell, this is why Sony needs a system.
You know what you could do? Going back to my idea where the rights revert back to the filmmaker to distribute however they want after 6 months.
Yeah.
You could work out a deal where you're like, the streaming service can also create Blu-rays and 4K discs, and we will distribute your film and we'll split the earnings with you. So we pay you initially like $10 million. We use your thing for 6 months. Then it goes on our website to purchase on Blu-ray and 4K on like a made to order thing. So we're not printing 8 million copies and waiting for them all to sell through.
Yeah.
Instead, it's all made to order, like made on demand Blu-rays. And so somebody you sell one, and like you can leave that hosting up forever and give us access to that file for as long as we want. And then we can just print the Blu-ray, send it off to whoever buys it, and send you 40% of all the earnings or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, 50-50, whatever. And then we're slowly earning that money back on all of our physical media sales. And you're continuing to earn money in perpetuity on your film beyond the initial investment we made in it. It's good for both parties.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You could do a lot of cool stuff, but instead we gotta have more lightsabers. Get the lightsabers out.
$750,000 per minute.
Let's spend all that money on the lightsabers. Some of them are green and some of them are blue. The evil ones are red.
The bad ones are red. No, I don't know. Never mind.
It's woke.
All right. Well, that's juror number 2, everybody. Sorry,
I can't believe I ended that review with "It's woke."
It's woke.
This is a Clint Eastwood film.
Not woke enough.